Ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first to officially tell you that Texas Tech is the class of the Big 12. And the biggest storyline of the Big 12 season so far to me is that Texas Tech's got legitimate playoff winning potential. Texas Tech can win a playoff game, but it's going to have to come with Will Hammond at quarterback. We have a Wally Pipped situation on our hands. We have a quarterback controversy on our hands in Lubbock, because I have now seen too much of Will Hammond to know this is the guy. This is the way. If Texas Tech wants to win, not just a Big 12 championship, but if Texas Tech wants to do damage in the playoff, I think Will Hammond is that dude. That's where the ceiling is high enough to do it. Welcome in, everybody. A live stream here after what we thought might be the Big 12 game of the year. We'll talk about Utah in a minute. I don't know exactly what to think about the Utes, just how good or not good they actually are after watching this performance. But what we do know is that Texas Tech is legit. Doing that in that environment on the road, the way that they did, battling through adversity, through penalties and turnovers, and still being good enough to win by 24 points, by the way. Did I mention that they won by 24 points? Crazy. Texas Tech is the class of the Big 12. Everything that you have heard this offseason about the spend, the money, Cody Campbell, all of that. Look, I have been someone that's been slow to adopt on this, at least just cautious to adopt, not really slow. I've acknowledged that this was a possibility, but I wanted to see it. Okay, I wanted to see it from Texas Tech before I bought in, because it has been so long for this program. And we have seen instances of programs spending a lot of money and not actually making it all gel and work. And I wanted to see that from Joey McGuire. Well, I just saw it in about as tough an atmosphere as you could go play in, with all the hype, everything on the line, losing their starting quarterback. And I've seen enough. I mean, there's so many things that are impressive about this. Texas Tech, like, out-physicaled Utah, which you don't see that happen really ever. It's a great point that Joel Klatt was making at the end of the game. Like, Utah knows that Texas Tech has to run the ball, and they're still busting, that last I guess it was the next to last touchdown, the touchdown run that pops there late. Like, that's just getting out physical. Texas Tech, there's so many things about this I want to talk about. One of the smartest things Texas Tech has done is they devote the majority of their resources to the trenches, man, the offensive and defensive lines. That's how they're doing it in the high school recruiting. If you see the guys that they're landing in the portal and or not in the portal, but in the high school classes coming up, they're throwing a bunch of that money in the trenches. And that's the biggest difference between the SEC and everybody else in college football, is what happens in the trenches. You see that in the NFL draft numbers. Big 12's got some good skill position players, but in the trenches, man, if you can dominate like that, you can impose your will on people. And that's exactly what happened here today, man. So congrats to Texas Tech. Congrats to Texas Tech fans, man. You guys have waited long enough for a team like this. You deserve it. So I am legitimately happy for Texas Tech's fan base. What I was going to say is another big part of the reason that I have been hesitant about buying all in on Texas Tech and this team and the effort that they have made with James Blanchard and Cody Campbell is because I worried about the ceiling with Behren Morton. And guys, I am here to tell you that I feel pretty vindicated in that stance today based on what happened. And it's for a couple of reasons. Okay. One, I wondered about just his actual pure ability, like the ceiling of his ability. And I know you can throw all the stats that you want at me. He statistically had a great year last year. He statistically had an incredible start to the season this year. Take nothing away from him. He's definitely he's good enough to be like a Big 12 champion quarterback, probably. He's definitely like a good Big 12 quarterback, and he's very experienced, and I think that definitely helps. But I've always wondered about like the arm talent and legitimate ability when it comes to games like this, like big time games against great defenses. And guys, I mean, the only reason Texas Tech didn't win this game by 35 is because he short-armed a couple of balls that wound up getting picked, one of which was in the end zone. And that's kind of my thing. That's been my hesitation, my hang up with Behren Morton the whole time. One of them anyway, his ability. And I think we saw that. And then meanwhile, at the end of the game, Will Hammond is just whipping it into the end zone into minuscule windows for touchdowns over and over again. Or he throws one down the right sideline that gets dropped, a rare drop from Tech's incredible receiving core, and he comes right back to it on the next play and drops one even more so right in the bucket. Will Hammond is that dude, man. That's a guy that you can go out and win playoff games with the rest of this roster. And the other problem, the other hesitation with Behren Morton, of course, has always been his health, which maybe isn't totally fair. I mean, you can say, hey, some of this is luck and but guys, what do we see today? Not just that he started getting shaken up after he took a huge hit that was not really his fault. But then after that, he's taken off. And I mean, you got to admire the toughness. I mean, the guy is tough as nails and he's out there running, trying to make plays. But dude, homie, you got to slide. You got to slide. I mean, he ran himself into trouble. And when that's been your career narrative, you just, at a certain point, some of that is just who you are as a player, that it's always going to come with you. I'm not even necessarily saying like a flaw, because again, it's hard to fault him for playing his ass off and wanting to run really hard and try and pick up extra yards. But you gotta be able to channel a little bit of restraint there and get down and slide. And so at this point, if he's going to be that guy that just plays that hard, that is always a risk that will accompany him. And so you have to factor that into what he is as a quarterback and what the ceiling is for him. And so to me, it was just like an encapsulation of everything that I've thought about Behren Morton that I felt like would be a limiting factor for this team. But I mean, the good news, the great news for Tech fans is, obviously, it didn't hurt you in this game, and it looks like you've got a guy that can be the option. You've got a guy that can be elevated ceiling enough to really lift this team to the heights that you truly want to be at. Joel Klatt was sitting there saying at the end of the game, like, I think this is a top 10 team. I would agree. It looks like there is talent enough there for this to be legitimately a top 10 team, and they are functioning well. They're playing together. They believe. They built up a boatload of confidence for the first 3 games of the season. And that was like some championship medal that you saw there. Utah finally gets the one drive where they kind of break one play, really about the only play that Devin Dampier made the entire game that wasn't called back. He did have the touchdown early on. But like the one play that he made where he gets a nice catch from the tight end, they wind up scoring on that drive. It's 13-10, crowd's going crazy. And Texas Tech proceeds to, from that point, that was 13-10, right? Texas Tech proceeds from that point to score 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and just shut that place up, man. That's another great comment from the broadcast that I completely agree with, is like, you can say what you will about the talent and, Texas Tech just bought this roster and yada, yada, yada. But you can't go out and buy what Texas Tech did when it got to 13-10. And then they just march down and score 3 straight touchdowns. You can't buy that. Like, that's some coaching. Like, that's some guys that are coached up, playing really together, have a bunch of poise. That's the type of thing that, to me, shows like this goes beyond just Texas Tech has a bunch of money and put together a superstar roster of players. That's really exciting if you're a Texas Tech fan. If you're a Big 12 fan, that's a really exciting thing, I think, to see. Obviously, I know some of you, whatever your rivalries, affiliations are, maybe you won't be. But if you want to see someone that could legitimately go out and do damage for the Big 12 and can legitimately be like a really positive story for the league this year, because there is an inherent respect that comes with the talent that Tech has, which, sort of gives you the table stakes to at least be in more national conversations. Texas Tech does have that. And that's a really good thing for the Big 12 as far as the national conversation goes. For a while, and this is why it's dangerous to just get too tied up in trying to get takes off in the middle of games, and it's where Twitter can, sort of hurt people sometimes. A lot of takes early on. I saw like the Barstool Ohio State guy talking about, how bad these teams look because there are a bunch of turnovers. There were, 5 first half turnovers, right? Both teams were pretty sloppy. Yes, there's no doubt about that. But like, you got to let the game play out, because as it played out, by the end of the day, it became pretty clear. It's like there was one story about this game, and it was not, hey, a couple of great defenses battling it out. It was not these teams are overrated. It was not even these are the two best teams in the Big 12, because I don't think I come away from this game believing that. There was one story today, and that is like Texas Tech is that team. Texas Tech is legit. Tech is ready. And what kept Utah in the game into the fourth quarter is the fact that they have an insane home field advantage, and it forced Texas Tech to commit more false start penalties than I think I've ever seen one team commit in a game. They wind up with 14 penalties for 122 yards in the game, which is crazy. But, Klatt was pointing it out. Lots of issues with the snap count and trying to clap and all that. Utah's home field advantage, it's worth points. It's legitimately worth points. When people talk about home field advantage being worth, I know typically you would say it's like worth 3 points or something. It felt like it was worth more than that today, and Utah still lost by 24. So let that sink in, It felt like it was worth a solid touchdown at least today, and Texas Tech still won the game by 24 points. So the story today, it's not, you got to let the full game play out, because I tweeted in the second half, maybe like midway through the third quarter, I was like, it just really feels like Texas Tech is a significantly better team, but it's a couple of poorly thrown balls by Behren Morton earlier in the game, which I thought was the team's Achilles heel. That was then solved by Will Hammond. And then all the penalties that were happening in large part because of the environment that they were playing in, which is a part of the game, and credit to Utah and their fans for bringing that. But to me, that's the story of this game. That is definitely the story of this game. Okay. Now I'm seeing Kim over and over again. I'm going to get to the super chats in a moment, guys. I see you, but Kim, I'm seeing over and over again on to Houston. I will say, I've seen Houston fans getting pretty pumped up about what their team brings to the table. And with that being the next game, Tech having to go to Houston. I mean, I will say that's pretty interesting. Now, bye week for Texas Tech before that happens. But Texas Tech at Houston, man, that will be fun. Obviously Tech is clearly the more talented team, but Houston is playing pretty good football. And take it from a K-State fan, look, it's sometimes a little difficult to go play at Houston, a little more difficult than you think it might be when, you're like 7-1 and absolutely rolling. Okay. Anyway, those are my initial thoughts. I want to talk about TCU also. I had that game on second screen today. In fact, that game got the full laptop screen treatment because multi-view, I couldn't get just the two games. I was a little frustrated with that, YouTube TV. But SMU loses for a third time in 2 years to a Big 12 team, which is nice to see. Second time this season. Obviously, Eric McAllister had absolutely insane day. That guy is, I guarantee you, will be getting a helmet sticker on a college football final tomorrow. So I want to get to that. I want to hear what you guys have to say. There are a bunch of super chats that I need to get to that I'm going to run through here in just a moment. But if you are just joining me here, first of all, please do like the video and please subscribe to the channel. All of that really helps. We've got a ton of people in here from YouTube, a lot of people in here from Twitter. I talk college football from a Big 12 perspective here on this channel, live multiple times throughout the week. I used to just say Wednesday, Sunday. Now it's multiple times throughout the week here during the season. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Very easy, definitely helps. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat. Also a way to guarantee that you make it onto the show here this afternoon. And if you're not watching live, you can hit me up on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 if you want to subscribe to the channel that way as well. And make sure that you guys are all subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Comes to your inbox twice a week for free. 5,000 plus Big 12 fans subscribed. OFBnews.com is the way to get in touch with that. Or click the link in the description of this video, OFBnews.com. All right. So thank you for letting me get my spiel out of the way there. Also, to recap briefly for those who are just showing up, here are my takes. Tech is legit. They're the class of the Big 12. I don't know how anybody could come away from this game not thinking that. Iowa State fans, I'm sure, might have something to say for that, but I think this is more impressive than anything we've seen Iowa State do so far this year. And I think Texas Tech's got to play Will Hammond. I'm sure that's not – I would guess that that's not going to be the initial reaction of Joey McGuire. I don't know. But I guess I would put it this way. Texas Tech is in this mode of like cutthroat, like we're spending money. We're out to win this thing come hell or high water. We're winning. James Blanchard has said, if we don't win the Big 12, I will feel like a failure. Like that is the goal, and they are not cutting any corners, and they are going for it. if you're going for it, to me, Will Hammond needs to be the guy playing quarterback because he's got a high enough ceiling to go win playoff games, and you've got to develop that, and you've got to just let that guy ride, man. He just proved. I can understand before this. I know Tech fans were explaining to me that this was kind of a debate last year, and people have seen the flashes of Will Hammond's talent. And I understand why it was still a debate before this year, because we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that in that environment before, right? He hadn't done that. And Behren Morton is an experienced veteran guy who puts up crazy numbers as long as the competition is moderate or below. He does a great job putting up big time numbers and can move the offense and take care of everything. But Will Hammond has a couple extra gears that Behren Morton does not have. I think we've now seen that. This is a good problem to have if you're Texas Tech. You definitely have two quarterbacks on your roster capable of winning the Big 12. I just think there's one quarterback on that roster capable of actually winning a playoff game and doing damage in the playoff. And unfortunately, it's not Behren Morton. I really like the guy, man. I told you guys I enjoyed listening to him, the TNT broadcast stuff that's happened over the last couple of weeks, getting to know him a little bit better. Seems like a great kid, man. Really like him, but I don't know. This has all the makings of like Wally Pipped written all over it. I would guess that Joey McGuire is going to be fairly measured about it, but at the end of the day, if you want to be like pedal to the metal, we're doing this to really shoot for the top. I don't know. Feels to me like that's the guy. Feels to me like that is the guy. Let's see what you guys have to say. Eddie, thank you for being here, Eddie. I appreciate you, my friend. Eddie says, hi, buddy. Good to get a live show. Congrats to Texas Tech and TCU. Eddie, thank you, my friend. You guys know the drill. If you need a real estate agent in San Antonio, Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate, is your guy. Great Big 12 fan. Eddie, thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of the channel, as always, my friend. And thank you for checking out the live show. Kim says it's one game. We move on to Houston. Enough said. Well, look, Kim, I know. I see what you're trying to do here. I understand that feeling as a fan. But it's just, I want you to make sure you take some time to enjoy this, man. When was the last time Texas Tech had a win like this on that big of a stage? And not just on that big of a stage, but with all of this behind it, like the circumstances behind it, meaning like this is not just like a one-off big win. This is like, this team is capable of big things. This is validating for being capable of big things and was on a national stage. Like, just enjoy it. You get today. Usually what do coaches say? You get like the 24-hour rule. You get 24 hours. Kim, I'm going to give you 24 hours to enjoy it, my friend. Enjoy it for 24 hours. Like, you don't get many opportunities to relish in a win every single year because you only play, 12 to 15 games. And then on top of that, you very rarely get one that feels as nice as this. So just enjoy it would be my advice for now. Mitchell, what's up, Mitchell? Mitchell says another year of people talking themselves into Utah being special without them doing anything whatsoever to prove it and having that perception shattered. Well, Mitchell, I will say we got deked a bit by UCLA here. It felt like Utah had done something of consequence by beating UCLA 43-10. That did feel like it was a meaningful result at the time. UCLA finished hot last year and then added Nico Iamaleava. There was reason to think, hey, that may be at least like a 7-5 sort of team. Obviously, that's not the case. That shifted our perception a lot. And I will say, I was a bit surprised by the Vegas line, to be completely honest, going into this game. And Utah, maybe this is a good opportunity to pop in with my Utah thoughts here. I was texting with my buddy Cole Manbeck, who co-hosts the 3 Mile podcast with me, and I thought he was really spot on with this, where it's like Devin Dampier was great through the first 3 weeks. He did not turn the ball over. He did have some of those highlight reel plays. The offense outside of the first half against Wyoming was playing very well, and even then they were moving the ball. It was just field goals and missed field goals that were the problem. But if he gets a little beat up, which he did, and they talked about that today, like has a bit of an ankle issue, and all of a sudden he's not quite as mobile, well, then you throw him up against a good defense. He does not have the arm to go out and beat you. He does not have the arm to go out and beat a good defense if his mobility is limited. And if you're not able to establish the running game as a team around him to support him. And Utah absolutely was not able to do that because, the best individual unit in the conference is Texas Tech's defensive line. I think that feels fair to say at this point. That unit is outstanding. Lee Hunter, I love that Lee Hunter's efforts got spotlighted there because that's what it is. I mean, there's no weak spot along that defensive line. People think about David Bailey and Romello Height, the defensive ends, but the defensive tackles, Skylar Gill-Howard multiple times was out tackling wide receivers on the edge. That's a defensive tackle. And multiple times I'm hearing his name called getting out, tackling receivers on the edge. Lee Hunter obviously occupies double teams, just a monster space eater. There's no weakness across that defensive front. And then, oh, by the way, back behind that, you've got the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year at linebacker and Jacob Rodriguez. Like it's a monster defensive front. And if Utah can't run the ball, Devin Dampier is a little bit limited, so his mobility is not quite as effective. He's just not going to have the arm to be able to beat you. And then on top of that, maybe this game is a little bit different if Utah doesn't have its first-round pick tackle 7 yards down the field the one time that Dampier does make a hell of a play and drops one in the bucket for a touchdown. Maybe the game plays out a little bit differently if just there's more game pressure put on Texas Tech because that touchdown stands. I mean, that was a back-breaking play, an absolute back-breaking play for Utah. And the fact it's just a cruel twist of fate for Utah fans that it's your guy, it's one of your stud tackles that just I don't know what you're thinking by getting down the field as far as he did on that play. That was a critical mistake, man. Absolutely critical. So yeah, that's I guess sort of in defense of us a little bit for the Utah stuff, Mitchell, but it's very easy to see where things go wrong here. I still think Utah has a great defense. It just they can only hold up for so long. And after a while, there's just too many waves of Texas Tech coming at them and a quarterback who was capable of taking full advantage of all the weaponry that's there on that offense. Thank you, Mitchell. I appreciate your support of the channel. Gentle Brutality. What's up, Gentle Brutality? When Morton went out, I thought Texas Tech was done. The backup looked as good as Morton did, and Texas Tech's D-line and D is for real. Money well spent. Indeed. And Gentle Brutality, I would just change that sentence. I think you probably know. You've been listening long enough now to the stream. I would change that sentence, say the backup looks better than Morton. I think the backup looked better than Morton. He did not short arm a couple of interceptions and was just consistently putting it into tight windows throughout the entire rest of the game that he was in there. So appreciate you, Gentle Brutality. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your support of the channel. Joe, TCU versus Tech Big 12 championship will set records. I mean, Iowa State would have something to say about that right now, but we're talking TCU and Texas Tech here, right? And that's certainly a possible Big 12 championship matchup. It looks that way. Texas Tech's defense against TCU's offense would be fun as hell to watch right now because those may be the best two units in the conference. We'll see. But TCU's offense, just speaking of something that just keeps coming at you. I'll get to more on them in a minute, Joe. I'm sure. And I see you got another super chat coming up here, but I will get to more on what's going on with or what happened in the TCU SMU game here in just a moment. Kim, the story is Tech's defense. Utah had 263 yards for sure. I mean, you look at total yards in this game, Tech almost had 500 themselves, so they were close to doubling up Utah, 484 to 263. Utah had 101 yards rushing on 31 attempts, so 3.3 yards per carry for Utah. That's just not going to be enough to support a hobbled Devin Dampier. You're asking way too much of him if that's what you're asking him to do. And then Texas Tech's defense forced 4 turnovers. Utah turns it over 4 times. There was another one that was very close. There was the interception that was initially called a pick and wasn't. I mean, it could have been even worse as far as the turnovers go. Let's give a shout out to Shield Wood. I mean, so often a lot of the talk about Tech's spend this offseason was about what they did with the transfer portal and the players and the talent, but they also got a couple of new coordinators, and Shield Wood has certainly delivered the goods so far as the DC coming in from, speaking of Houston, but coming in from Houston, he has done an excellent job with that. So yes, fair to point out, Kim, fair to point out for sure. I was like Melio. Will I Am. Is that what we're calling him? Is that what we're calling Will Hammond? Will I Am. I like it. I was like Melio. Appreciate that. It'd be interesting. Tech fans. I had Tech fans tweeting me. They're like, dude, don't throw our message boards into this tizzy about debating the quarterbacks, and that was, it was still like a 1-score game at that point. It's out of my hands now, Tech fans. I mean, I'm doing this stream talking a lot about how I think like Will Hammond is the dude, but that train has left the tracks. No matter what I was going to do, by the end of that game with him just still out there slinging the pill like he was, that was going to happen regardless of what I did. So don't put that evil on me. Joe, what's up, Joe? ACC refs tried to back pocket SMU and we still won by double digits where Baylor struggles. Well, I mean, okay, Joe, you had him at home. All right. You had him at home. Let's say that too. But from my perception of the TCU game was that is also a game where it could have been worse than it was. I was like, I'll be honest, Joe, I was a little annoyed with TCU at points in that game that they couldn't put SMU away sooner than they did. Still a nice win. And I know you would tell me that officiating had something to do with that, like the Eric McAllister touchdown catch that wasn't. That's crazy. We got to get to his line in his day. It could have been even worse with another touchdown. That play where they were looking forever at whether or not his foot was in bounds. Yes, the game could have been put away sooner than that. But I really felt like TCU was in control the whole time. And it was like, the turnover toward the end of the first half, very annoying. Definitely bothered me. But I feel you. I feel your frustration, Joe. It's okay. Frogs won. You got your rival back. And TCU just as much technically in the driver's seat for the Big 12 championship as Texas Tech is. The Smooth Toad. What's up, the Smooth Toad? It's called Bryce Eccles now. Chris Level from Locked On Tech was right. They did go in there and thump Utah. I saw those comments from Chris Level, and I saw how they were getting spread around Ute Twitter, and I saw everybody was fired up. And I got to admit, even I like Chris Level. He does an excellent job, man. Excellent job. But I heard those comments and I was like, oof, damn, Chris, like Utah fans, boy, that's RIP your mentions, basically was my thought. I was like, that's gutsy. But hey, what do I know? The hell do I know, man? Chris Level knew what he was doing, and now he gets to bask in all the glory of that. I'm sure it'll be a great Locked On Tech show coming up. I'm sure that's going to be awesome, and he deserves it. He put himself out there with those comments, and lo and behold, what happened? They went in there and did it, man. Bob Seeger had midfield off and no points, could have piled on. Oh, no doubt, Bob. No doubt. This could have been a 30-point Texas Tech win. I mean, it winds up being 24. It could have been a 30-point Texas Tech win. And it is crazy. Like, you're looking through the box score, and you just see that 24 points in the fourth quarter from Texas Tech. 24 points. When you're on the road and Utah is typically wearing a team down, Texas Tech did the opposite of that, man. They rose up and scored 24 points in the fourth quarter. Eddie, I appreciate you, my friend. Eddie says, guys, I think Utah is a good team, a quality win for Texas Tech. TCU a good win over SMU. If SMU solves its penalty issues, they will be a good team in the ACC. Yeah, I don't think SMU is bad. They've got some real talent at the skill positions. Kevin Jennings is a great quarterback. Dude made some awesome plays. I mean, he made a couple plays on the run that I was just like, again, I'm watching from a hey, I want TCU to win standpoint. And I was getting very annoyed at Kevin Jennings. Some of the plays he was making, just throwing darts on the run, but he also can be a little turnover prone. That showed up at the end of the game, at least. But yeah, they've got talent. Like, SMU's a good team. There are reasons that the expectations were high for them. Problem for SMU now is their at-large hopes are effectively done. I mean, I find it hard to believe that with 2 non-conference losses, they would ever really be in the conversation for at-large, because I'd assume you'd lose another game. If you're not, you're not going to go, if you go unbeaten, you'll win the ACC and be in. Otherwise, you'll have a third loss. I don't foresee 3-loss SMU getting in, right? So your at-large hopes are pretty much done. And then you're looking around across the ACC like, all right, well, Clemson does look not good. I mean, the last check, they were down by 10 at home to Syracuse in a delay. But Florida State and Miami look very good. And it does not seem like a very realistic possibility that you're going to go win that conference. So that's a tough blow for SMU already. Whereas if they could have found a way to win today, might legitimately be able to hold on to some at-large playoff hopes there. Starter 179. What's up, Starter 179? I think the Texas Tech D-line might be good enough to win a national title. They just come in waves. It's not 2 guys. It's 5 to 7 unreal talent accumulated. I agree. I mean, that's definitely a national championship level unit. Like, I think you could stack that one up with about anybody in the country, and it's legit as advertised. I got a little annoyed on your behalf, Tech fans, when I would hear people say this seemed to become like a real popular narrative. I think like the Cover 3 podcast, maybe Bud Elliott, I heard say this. I've heard a couple people say it that follow recruiting from a really closely and from a national level. They were just like, hey, this portal haul it's great that Tech had the number one portal haul or number two, depending on where you're looking at it. But this really wasn't a great year for the portal. It wasn't like a high level year. And I was kind of like, I mean, okay. But Tech got so much of it and so much of it in a concentrated position. When you throw that many dudes that were legit dudes at the defensive line, like that's going to be majorly impactful, especially in the Big 12. And I think we're seeing that come to life. I do think that unit is for sure championship caliber. Whether or not the rest of the team is, I don't know. But I think with Will Hammond playing quarterback, if he continues to develop throughout the year, if he is the dude, I do think that ceiling is good enough to be winning a playoff game or two, and just see what happens after that. Pacific Northwest Utes. Pacific Northwest Ute says Utes now merely a better form of last year with iffy pass decisions, subpar play calls, why not more RPO, and defense keeping team in the game as long as possible. I think that's a pretty fair summation of Utah right now. I don't think they're a bad team. It's dangerous to judge this too early, and they can evolve and be different. And Texas Tech may really be like a top 5 to 10 team in the country, and you just saw what it looks like going up against them. I mean, Utah felt like that's probably like an 8-4 team watching them today. That was kind of just off the cuff. If you had me just watch it, not thinking about their schedule, just like in a vacuum, it's kind of what it felt like to me. And some of that will depend on Dampier's health and how mobile can he be. And I can understand having some frustration as a Utah fan with the offense, play calls. I mean, basically just everything with the offense, because it was they just couldn't find anything. They hit like 2 big plays the whole game. One gets called back because of a penalty. The other did lead to a touchdown when you get the catch and run by the tight end that Dampier even then threw kind of low. So there seemed to be some systemic issues there. And, I will just say this, when you're bringing in an offensive coordinator from the Group of 5 level, maybe this is like your welcome to a Power 5 football moment. This is like did I just screw up both numbers? Did I just say Group of 5 and Power 5? When you're bringing up a Group of 6 coach to the Power 4 level, maybe this is like your welcome to the Power 4 moment in terms of being an offensive coordinator. Like, here's the best defensive line in the country. Go to work. And you think you're relying on, remember, they continue to hammer on the broadcast that Kyle Whittingham said he thinks this is the best offensive line that he has ever coached. And if that's what you think, and your assumption is, man, we can lean on the best offensive line that Kyle Whittingham has ever had in the golden era of Utah football, and they're getting pushed around, that's going to limit a lot of what you can do, man. I mean, that does put the clamps down on a game plan. That's kind of like the Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And like Tech's D line just came and popped them in the mouth. So yeah, I get it. I understand some disappointment, Pacific Northwest U, but I do think that is still, as long as Dampier is healthy, I mean, I think that's still a much better team than what you had last year. All right, I'm going to pause real quick and tell you guys all to please subscribe to the channel. Click the subscribe button. Very easy. We have a huge YouTube audience in here, even bigger Twitter audience. If you guys could be so kind on Twitter to just roll over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel, like the video, that would be great. But if you're already here on YouTube, it's even easier. Just like the video, subscribe to the channel. I talk college football from a Big 12 perspective all throughout the week here on this channel. During the season, I'm going live when stuff matters. Okay, when big games happen, I'm going live. I try to do a midweek stream and a Sunday night stream as well throughout the week. So you're getting a ton of content here on this channel. If you love college football, especially if you love Big 12 football, do make sure to subscribe to the channel. And subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. It is ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com. Or you can click the link in the description of this video. It is totally free, and twice a week, I will send you Big 12 news and my analysis straight to your inbox for free. 5,100 plus subscribers across Big 12 country already. So appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. I like this from Josh. Utah got out Utah'd. Utah did get out Utah'd, but then Texas Tech still, they have another element that Utah does not. They did get out Utah'd in that Texas Tech was more physical and kind of wore them down by the end of the game. But Texas Tech also has, I mean, those wideouts. Texas Tech's got a crew, man. And then I think Will Hammond obviously showcased, like, he's got another element with his arm talent that Devin Dampier just does not have. So Tech also is working with better ingredients than what Utah has too. But that's a good phrase for the physicality of the game, that Utah got out Utah for sure. So appreciate you, Josh. All right, let's talk a little TCU. Before I get out of here. Because the Frogs deserve some spotlight. First of all, speaking of being happy for fan bases, after what happened last year to that team against SMU with the 5 turnovers and the 3 non-offensive touchdowns given up, I am thrilled that TCU got this win. They have now cemented a nice start to the season, whereas last year that didn't happen. They fell under the radar, and not many people noticed a nice finish because everybody had written TCU off at the beginning of the year. But TCU wins 35-24. And guys, the headline from this, if you have not watched Eric McAllister play, TCU's receiver, you need to go watch him. The man had 8 catches for 254 yards and 3 touchdowns today, and that is with another long touchdown that got taken off the board by, I mean, like blades of grass. Long review to see if his foot was actually in bounds. Blades of grass kept that from being yet another touchdown. And I get it. I mean, he had 5 catches for 66 yards coming into the game today and just explodes. But I think, my expectation was that Eric McAllister was going to be a huge factor for TCU this year, and perhaps their biggest offensive weapon. And boy, he came alive. I mean, he looks the part. Eric McAllister, 6'3". I mean, he's got the size. He looks every bit the part as a big dude, and Josh Hoover just continued to go to him over and over again. Every time I was looking over at that screen today, it was Eric McAllister making a huge play. One of the best offensive weapons that is out there in the conference. Josh Hoover, just another day for him, man. I mean, 22 of 40. You're not going to love the completion percentage necessarily there, but 300. You will love 379 yards and 5 touchdowns to just 1 pick. I mean, Josh Hoover just keeps coming. That guy is relentless. That arm will just keep coming at you for an entire game, and he will wear you out and just keep firing. Just keep firing, keep firing, keep firing. I have been a Sawyer Robertson guy. Okay. I've been a Sawyer Robertson guy for sure. I have been leading that fan club most of the offseason and into this year. And he's another one that will just keep slinging it, man. He'll keep coming and coming and coming. And SMU now knows about both of those guys. But Josh Hoover seems to me to be a little bit more polished and reliable, whereas Sawyer Robertson's a bit more erratic. I think Sawyer brings a little bit more with his legs as well. But point being, I want to make sure and give Josh Hoover some love here, because that was a great performance. And it feels like that's just what he does at this point. Like, this is just what you can come to expect from Josh Hoover every single game. I was going to go pull up the game log here. Yeah. I mean, North Carolina, it was only 284 and 2 touchdowns, which seems like light work. But if you watch that game, he was clowning them the entire night. Then he goes 337 and 4 touchdowns against Abilene Christian. Now 379 and 5 touchdowns. Okay. It's a crazy season that he is having. He had 621 yards before today. So now you throw on that 921 plus 70. I think that's exactly 1,100 yards. No, 1,000 yards. I think we're at 1,100 yards. 1,100 yards. And this is why I got a comms degree, guys, not a math degree. And 11 touchdowns for Josh Hoover to just 2 interceptions so far this year. So the guy's a stud. The problem is, here's the problem, guys. ESPN has updated all the boxes, but they haven't updated the total yet. So I'm having to try and do math on the fly there. But big win for the Big 12 to get another win over the ACC, to get another win over a playoff team from last year. And I think more importantly, to me, again, the bigger picture takeaway here for TCU is just have them be a team that people are thinking about now. TCU is in the national conscience. And I know insert joke here, Frog fans, about not being in the AP poll. Like, I get it. You'll be in the AP poll now. All right. No need to worry about that. TCU will be ranked, I'm sure, after this week. But it's just not only everybody saw you dominate North Carolina, now it's been backed up by another nice non-conference win. People will be paying attention, and it's not like TCU will totally fly under the radar. And that helps the league. There's another contender, and it's a familiar name that people know that has been near or almost totally at the top of the sport by playing in a national championship game a few years ago. TCU is a good brand to have up there. Texas Tech, obviously, with what they did in the portal, all the attention that's been created by them. It's a nice brand right now for the Big 12 to have up there near the top of the league. Iowa State now has really established itself over the last couple of years. Nice brand to have there at or near the top of the league. I know, like Houston, Arizona fans, you guys are still unbeaten, but to me, it's kind of your cream of the crop right now. That is your cream of the crop. Joe, keep us in the dark. Okay, well, Joe, you've got the opposite stance of one of the other gentlemen who's been on the show the last couple of weeks complaining about not being ranked. But you are definitely right, Joe, that TCU owns the ACC. Absolutely owns the ACC. I would, this is a good one too. TACCU. That's a good one, Pacific Northwest U. That is definitely a good one. I think you can go ahead and declare TCU the ACC champs, give them the title, or just, why not? Okay, look, if TCU does not make the Big 12 championship game this year, just let them play Florida State or Miami, whoever it's going to be in the ACC championship game. Just let that happen. Let that be the game. Why not do that? Shakedown 1971. Shakedown 1971. UCF up early on UNC. Are they really? Let's go look at that one. Let's check out that score. That's the thing about the live streams. I got to focus. 10-0. 10-0 into the first quarter, and UCF has the ball in North Carolina territory. How about that? Boy, I guess Vegas knew what they were talking about with that line. That kind of surprised me going into that game. Curtis, what's up, Curtis? Tech has a top 2 defense and offense in the Big 12. Nice game. Still pulling for my Utes and back to the drawing board. Hey, appreciate the sportsmanship, the deference there from you, Curtis. And I think that's probably accurate. I think Texas Tech looks like they've got top 2 units for sure. That defense is totally nails. The offense, I think, I know I'm a broken record at this point. I've been doing this for 42 minutes, but with Will Hammond, I think that's the guy. I think that's the guy with a higher ceiling there. So Curtis, I appreciate it. I'm going to do one more thing because I see Matador Kingdom got in here. Matador, I'll give you a brief recap. Totally on board. I think this was a very legitimizing win for Texas Tech. This is one that validates everything that's happened. I said I needed to see it in a situation like this before I would believe it. I've now seen it. They out-physicaled Utah, and they clearly have a couple extra notches of ceiling on that team because of the offense and the playmaking ability of Will Hammond. That's my other big takeaway, Matador Kingdom. I think if Tech wants to win playoff games, if they can get to the playoff with Behren Morton. If they want to win playoff games, I think Will Hammond is the guy at quarterback. I think there's a higher ceiling there quite clearly. And it seems like he's ready to handle anything. Now, maybe on a consistent, Tech's staff would know this better than I. Maybe they feel like on a consistent week in, week out basis, he wouldn't be as poised or prepared as Behren Morton. But I don't know that he's going to see a tougher situation than what he saw today when it gets to 13-10 after Utah scores. And the crowd is totally bumping, and it's a 3-point game in the fourth quarter, and he just goes bam, bam, bam. Here's 3 touchdown drives. I don't know that he's going to see anything more challenging than that the rest of the year. So it feels like to me he showed that he can handle about whatever you throw at him. So I'll be curious to see what the Tech reaction to that is like this week. I'll be curious to see what Joey McGuire's reaction to that is like this week. So that's it. Is Tech a top 10 team? They sure looked like it to me today. They definitely did. Okay. Appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. Let's go watch some more football. Let's hope UCF gets a nice dub. Hope you're enjoying your college football Saturday. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all very soon.